history of horror film music from 1970. Now, in 1970, there was a landmark film that defined not only horror films, but horror music, and that was The Exorcist by William Friedkin. William Friedkin had hired a composer named Lalo Schifrin to score the film. And what they'd done is they had scored the trailer, and they had done a couple like little suites and things. The trailer they played for public, and it was historically important because it made people sick. I mean, people ran to the bathroom and threw up, and all kinds of having seizures and things. Now, part of that had to do with the fact that the trailer had a bunch of flashing images and flashing. It was really, a combination of things. But once William Friedkin got the music from Lalo Schifrin, he was so unhappy with it, he just threw it out his studio window, which had a parallel with the images of the fact that someone in the film gets thrown out of a window and down some stairs. That was the rumor. Whether it was true or not is hard to tell. But Lalo Schifrin's music was not used. With that, I'd actually like to take a minute and take a listen to what one of the pieces from Lalo Schifrin's work. So, what was the music in The Exorcist? Well, it consisted of tracks not written for the film. A lot of it was contemporary classical 20th century music. William Friedkin really introduced the public at large to many composers like Anton Webern, Hans Werner Henze, George Crumb in America, and Mike Oldfield, who did more electronic kind of ambient music, and most importantly, Krzysztof Penderecki. Penderecki had been writing in the 60s, during which time in Hollywood we had films like Psycho, which is a very important moment in horror film also, especially with the score by Bernard Herrmann. But what Penderecki was doing was in concert music, classical music, he was trying to reproduce some of the electronic music of musique concrète, which was another avant-garde phase in music, with orchestral instruments. So now you get the instruments not just playing melodies and things, but a lot of effects and sounds and creaks and cracks and these kind of things. And that created the soundtrack for horror scenes. It conditioned the audiences, it conditioned Hollywood, the producers and the directors, on what type of music should be heard underneath horrific scenes. And this continues all through the 70s, the 80s, 90s, all the way up to now, 2017. We still are highly influenced by the choices of William Friedkin to use the music of Penderecki for horrific scenes. Let's take a listen to something by Krzysztof Penderecki. This is a piece called Polymorphia. In 1974, we get the Texas Chainsaw Massacre by Tobe Hooper. And in this case, the director, with another composer named Wayne Bell, created a score, or maybe more like a sound effect score. And one of the most important sounds he uses, or the musical thumbprint or fingerprint for this film, was this bowed metal sound. That sound is kind of what it really was very effective in the film with this maniac chainsaw wielder. And so yeah, I don't know if I call it music. I call it kind of more of a sound effect, sound design type score. In 1975, we get a very important film by Steven Spielberg called Jaws. And this is where John Williams created this relentless, incredibly terrifying score for this man-eating shark. And what was great about this score is that it became a cultural icon. The film scared people so much that they didn't go into the ocean anymore. The score itself was so cool and so important that even when the shark is not on the screen and you heard the theme, you thought of the shark and it scared you. The other cool thing was when the shark wasn't on the screen and they were giving you a little red herring, such as a scene with the boy with the fin on the back of his strapped to his back and he was going to scare his friends, but you don't hear the theme, so you know it's not the shark. That kind of iconic music was really an important step when it came to working with music in film. In 1976, we have another landmark film, The Omen, this time dealing with the birth of Satan's child. It was scored by Jerry Goldsmith, and he won an Oscar for that one that year. What's really cool about this music is that he uses choir, and he uses Latin text. And he kind of altered the Latin text. So instead of using Ave Maria, which is what we're commonly heard in liturgical Latin text, he changed Maria to Satan, so Ave Satani. It was really a funny thing for Goldsmith, and it becomes, it's a tremendously atonal and brutal score, but that kind of silly funniness was part of his humor and musical genius. Very effective, very effective. In 1979, we have another Jerry Goldsmith score, which I think is probably the most important horror science fiction score that's ever been created. That was for Ridley Scott's movie Alien. And for me, this is the most important score in my development as a composer, and it is one of the most tremendous landmark scores of all film music, period. Now, granted, the film ended up chopping up the score, asking for alternate takes and alternate versions, and even using music from another film. So for Jerry Goldsmith, it wasn't the best experience. Luckily, we have the album. There was an album created. Back in those days, you not only recorded the score for the film, but you had more recording dates after that to record the score for the album. And so luckily we have a beautiful presentation of the full intended score for the film Alien by Jerry Goldsmith. And with that, I would like to end this video. If you liked the video, check the like below. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in subscribing. And come back next week for the next video essay on the last part of horror film music.